Oh, yeah. You're much more of a Thanos.
Discombobulate.
So, in a recent video of mine, I compared Abed Nadir from Community to Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory and talked about how vastly different qualities of autism representation they are. Today, I wanted to take a look at a different area of autistic coded characters in media that, much like Sheldon, can definitely be a misrepresentation oftentimes. I'm talking about detectives, or more specifically, detective characters that are clearly written as autistic coded. Obviously, detective characters have existed in fiction for many years. There are a distinct few characters that always seem to come up whenever I've talked about autistic coded characters on this channel. And these characters also do happen to be detectives. However, I think there are honestly some very easy writing traps studios can fall into in writing characters like this, especially when looking at characters from older media that are considered autistic coded, since those can easily fall into stereotypes that aren't always accurate. So today, I wanted to look at a few distinct examples of these autistic detectives, and explain as an autistic person what can be done to make them better written so that they resonate with people more. But before we begin, be sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. We're closing in on 3,000 subs, so subscribe to help us meet that goal if you want to see more content like this in general. Share the video with a friend if you think they'll like it too. But anyway, on to today's video. Sherlock Holmes is the first thing that often tends to appear in people's minds when you say the word detective. He's easily one of the most famous things to come out of Great Britain aside from Harry Potter, Wallace and Gromit, and Bad Teeth. He's also just one of the most enduring, well-known fictional characters of all time. There have been so many interpretations of this character throughout the decades as a result because A, he's in the public domain, and B, he's a pretty easy character to mold to a different vision for whoever might be tackling a new adaptation. He can be modern, he can be Victorian, he can be helping a Japanese lawyer and imitating waxworks. It's all up to whoever is interpreting him. But the one other thing about Sherlock Holmes is that he's often seen as autistic coded, funnily enough. A lot of people have actually suggested him to get his own video of me just discussing Sherlock as an autistic coded character, and I do understand why. For a long time, Sherlock has actually been considered an autistic character, thanks to his intense hyperfixations on chemistry, and other subjects too, and his ability to pick up on very fine and distinct details that nobody else could. This actually is a common trait of autism, admittedly, but the issue is the way it's portrayed in a character like Sherlock. Sherlock Holmes is traditionally a barely functioning, mentally unbalanced man who has to take constant doses of heroin to keep from falling deep into depression. As well known as Sherlock most likely is, this probably still is not a good portrayal of an autistic coded character at the end of the day. It does feel rather like a stereotype, and much like what I discussed in my Abed vs. Sheldon video, while Sherlock does have an impressive wit he's able to use to aid in crime scenes, he ultimately can just be a jerk to most people, similar to Sheldon, which falls under the stereotype of autistic people lacking empathy. I do tend to give Sherlock more of a pass than Sheldon, admittedly, since he at least does have more tendencies to aid those around him, at least more than Sheldon, which, to be honest, is not saying much.
I've always wanted to do a traditional Victorian Christmas. Parlor games, goose, and figgy pudding.
Oh! English pudding. You get yourself all excited for pudding, and here comes a cake with raisins in it.
Stop! Shut up.
Regardless, Sherlock is still not really a great autistic coded character at the end of the day. The next example is Adrian Monk from the renowned TV crime show Monk, about a detective with extreme obsessive compulsive disorder. OCD has many overlaps with autism, which has actually led a lot of people to think Adrian Monk is also autistic coded. Weirdly enough, I actually do think this portrayal is actually an improvement over Sherlock. It all comes down to how Monk is written in particular as a character within this show. He has very specific conditions he has to require in order to solve cases and stuff, in order to function on a daily basis, which thankfully the people around him are usually willing to accommodate, since he is there to help and is ultimately there to help solve crimes and aid people. And not just for his pure benefit. I honestly think Monk is actually a better portrayal of this kind of character, since you want to actually root for him and people do tend to resonate with him more because he's actually a positive portrayal, I would say. So I would definitely say Monk is a pretty big step up over Sherlock in terms of a character people can actually feel for, and a character that shows empathy. That way it doesn't lean into stereotypes at all. for a third example here, let's look at L from Death Note, which is another character that's been recommended to me a lot in the comments of my other videos. L is a character that's often seen as autistic coded by a lot of people, myself included, because he actually does have a lot of autistic traits, I would say. He often does have to stim, since he'll rub his feet against each other or he'll rub his thumb against his lip, just little things like that. His out-of-the-box methods and ability to think outside of the box in order to catch light Yagami, unlike all the other police officers that he's working with during the Kira case, also makes me kinda think this as well. I was actually kinda worried L would fall under the stereotype of low empathy as an autistic coded character as well, but thankfully he actually doesn't. I think it is clear throughout the show that he does care about other people, but much like many autistic people, myself included, he just doesn't always know how to properly convey that, and his communication is not always the best. This is something I struggle with too, so I actually think L is a pretty good autistic coded character. One of the biggest issues with autistic coded characters being detectives in media is that they can easily fall under the stereotypes that I listed before and also just seem kind of like robots or savant or gifted type characters, which is not really what most people want to see. And it also creates a character that not many people are going to be able to relate to or resonate with. So while there are some stereotypes that L and Monk do fall under, I still consider them relatively good representation because they still feel like real people at the end of the day, and people do actually resonate with these characters. Now for my last example, I want to discuss Ima Sky from the Ace Attorney series, who probably is the best example, in my opinion, of an autistic coded detective character. Ima is a regular character in the Ace Attorney series and is a forensic investigator. She initially becomes a forensics investigator after having a pretty blatant hyperfixation with science, and also after being able to clear her sister's name, who was framed for murder in one of the Ace Attorney cases. Her sister, Lena, actually sends her to Europe in order to achieve her dream of being a forensic investigator by studying over there in Europe. As a person, Ima actually shows even more of these autistic traits, since she has a hard time talking about anything other than forensics or Steel Samurai, which is one of her favorite shows that she watches. She can be pretty withdrawn from people oftentimes, but if she's discussed with about forensics, then she immediately brightens up, since that is definitely one of her hyperfixations. Honestly, I think she's definitely the best example out of any autistic coded detective character out there, because she's definitely the one that feels most like a real person, while still definitely showing real autistic traits. She also is one of the most popular characters in this entire series, so I think that kind of speaks to how well written she is as an autistic coded character. Again, if you write your autistic coded character well and make them not seem like a robot, people will resonate with them, and that's really just what we want to see more of in general. We just want to see more autistic coded characters that aren't really seen as like robots or savants or gifted, but just seen as real people. And thankfully there are characters out there, especially Ima, that do that do also happen to be detectives. I kinda hope as time goes on and more awareness is spread, we continue to see autistic coded detectives that aren't really just robots or savant type characters, but just real people in general with real interests, real passions, and real desires in life. And thankfully, it does seem like we're getting more of that, which is awesome. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you didn't like it, give it a like anyway. If you want to check out all my socials down below, you can see all those down there. And if you want to join my Discord too, where you can communicate with me and others offline, that should be linked down below. And if you want to check out my letterbox, that is linked down below as well. That's where I review movies, oftentimes movies or shows I won't review here on YouTube, so you can check that out too if you want extra content from me. But for now, I've been Noah the Otter, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye!